Um, I guess we'll see. Jim Rickards, you know who Jim Rickards is, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He says that there's going to be 2 crashes of 20% each, and on the 11th of April, which is Passover. So we'll
they're
see.
gearing us up for what? What do they mean by 25%? Like how? What is that? I know that's the tariff amount they're putting out there.
So stock market's right now about 34,000. So 20% would be about 7,000, right? 2 of them. So that's 14,000. So then it'd be down to 20,000, you know. Um, I guess we'll see. But it's more than just him that's saying it too. There's actually a bunch of people who are saying it. For example, since November, the U.S. has been importing huge amounts of gold and silver, huge amounts, more than ever in history, has been coming into the U.S. And all of these, if you go to the LMA, the London Metals Exchange, um, they have a delivery that they're supposed to deliver within a day, and right now it's like 6 to 8 weeks behind, and so everybody that orders metals is taking delivery. Usually they might just put them on deposit there or something like that, but they want delivery. Um, so something's coming down. It's hard for us to know, but the people behind the scenes know that something's coming down. That's why they're taking delivery. There's blood in the water basically, and and we'll see. That's all I can say. So I guess the end result is that I don't keep hardly any money in the bank. Like I keep like $10 in the bank. I have money on crypto exchanges, and I have a debit card so I can get it off of there, but it's in cryptocurrencies. It's not in dollars. And they're saying that there's going to be like a really big crash coming up in April.
Well, I'm going to hope that doesn't occur because, well, they're not talking about any crash. They're just talking more crazy shit up here that doesn't even make sense. But I just think it's all propaganda and, like a crash, right? Like, that's just so vast of a word, right? Like, they're going to, in the fall, they were saying they were going to shut the banks down. Okay, well, I was just telling Big Blue Ocean there that I was in the bank on Wednesday and it was chaotic in there. They didn't have, it was just crazy in there. There were people coming in for appointments. There was no direction, so like they're definitely under the gun like all the rest of the entities are, but they're not going anywhere. Like, I guess maybe they might if we keep on pressing them about, all the fraud that's going on and everything, but there's always going to be that fraud, right? They're not going to stop making money.
The whole system, I think, is on the verge of a collapse. They say that there's going to be, but I'm not sure if it's going to be in April or another time. But they say there's going to be a bond market crash, which if you understand do you know how the bond market works?
Yeah, it's like the stock market. Yeah.
No. There's the price and the yield, and so the price of the bonds go up, the yields go down, and if the price goes down, the yield goes up. They work inversely to each other, and the bond market makes the stock market look like a monopoly game. I mean, this bond market is huge. It's all government debt, and so it's huge. It makes the stock market look like dinky toys. Um, so so if there's a bond market crash, that means the price will go down a lot. Well, that also means the yield will go up. And the Federal Reserve or the Bank of Canada or whoever thinks that they can manipulate interest rates. When that shit happens, they can't manipulate nothing. They have no control over that. And so you'll see interest rates go through the ceiling. If there's a bond market crash, um, you know, I don't even, I just know that it will be huge if there's a bond market crash. It basically is if the U.S. defaults on the debt, I guess. But they're saying that's not going to happen till the fall. At least that's the rumor right now. So I don't think that's going to happen in April. But there's going to be something happen. I'm hearing something will happen in the summer, in April, in the summer, and then again in the fall. So I guess we'll see.
But folks don't even realize that their mortgages are bonds. So how are they going to come to this?
What do you mean?
How's I guess their mortgages are all going to be coming due, and then they'll see that the interest rates of all, their mortgage that was once manageable is now unmanageable. Correct?
Well, the mortgage is not a bond. The bonds are government bonds. Mortgages are just collateralized debt obligations, and so they're called CDOs, and they package them up into bundles. So you'll have hundreds of mortgages in one CDO, and they sell those on Wall Street. So mortgages are not bonds. They're collateralized debt obligations. Bonds they're basically a debt obligation by a government but there's also commercial bonds, but they're not, there's no collateral. It's basically on the good faith and credit of the company or the government. And if the credit of the government starts to go down, then the price goes up. I should say then the price of the bond will go down. The yield will go up. The government will have to pay higher interest rates.
That they'll pass on to us.
Well, to some extent, they can only tax the people so much, and then you get a civil war or something like that. So there's limits, especially right now when most governments are so heavily indebted. It makes it very difficult. And so the governments are they have to be careful. They can cause a civil war. There's only so much the people will do.
Yeah.
That's why Trump is in power, because the people saw what was going on and they weren't happy with it. When these kinds of things happen, this is when you get really, really big wars. And so I hope that doesn't happen, but I'll bet you it does.
Did you hear that China is supporting Russia to take back Ukraine? Is that on any of your airwaves down there? That's what they're talking a lot about up here. We're not talking about any crashes. That's what they're talking about.
I think that they're feeding you a bunch of garbage. I don't think Russia wants necessarily to take back Ukraine, but there's parts of Ukraine that have traditionally been part of Russia, and that the Ukrainian government was killing. They were killing all sorts of people, and the Russians stepped in to prevent them from killing all those people. And so the Russians want they did all that to put a stop to it. And so they want between the Russian and it's Donbass. There's two provinces in Ukraine that they want to put into Russia, and because the Ukrainians were killing them. That's why Russia did what they were doing. That's what Trump told Zelensky. Trump told Zelensky when they were in the White House. He said, "You started this, and you need to be ready to for peace." And
was
the U.S.
That a joke?
Huh?
That was a horrible meeting. Why was it televised? That's what everybody is questioning up here.
What televised?
Well, the meeting that they had with the Ukrainian president.
You know,
Usually
I don't
those
know.
things aren't televised.
I didn't even see it, but I know Trump, and I know, you know, that Zelensky didn't like what he was being told.
He looked real uncomfortable, yeah.
So the U.S. is not going to support it, and so you know, that's just politics.
Yeah.
The Ukrainians were killing people on a wholesale level. There was just basically war crimes, big time war crimes going on, and the Russians want to have war crimes, and I think that I don't you know, I don't. People say stand with Ukraine. Well, you know, first of all, in what is it, 2016, the CIA performed a coup in Ukraine called the Maidan massacre, and the U.S. government performed a coup and overthrew the legitimate government that was there, and so then they started murdering those people that were in that part of the Russian part of Ukraine, and there's only so much that they could allow to happen before the Russians stepped in and said that's enough, and I don't blame them a bit. So I don't, you know, I don't stand with Zelensky. He's a tyrant. They haven't had their elections. He's a tyrant, is what he is.
Yeah, he's been placed. I've heard that from many folks. Yeah, yeah, but that's the distraction that's going on right now. They're not talking about any financial crash.
Well, they want to get World War III going, and so, you know, now Zelensky's gone and talked to the European leaders, and France is on board with it because that's part of France's. Macron is a bankster boy.
One of them.
Yeah, one of them. And England is the one that wanted to do this from the beginning, and the U.S. is having a falling out with England. So, matter of fact, what I'm hearing is there's going to be a similar thing to what went on in the U.S. There's going to be a similar thing going on in England. The people in England are getting fed up with all this crap too.
Oh yeah, there's a few of them on here. Yep, they talk about it.
So we'll see.
But
you know,
yeah, they broke free of Brexit, right? They're not part of the EU anymore, so
that's true. That's true. So they broke free of that, but now they're going to tell the tyrant king, what's his face, Charles,
to
get
King
lost.
Oh, that would be beautiful. That would make Europe good again. Well, Don't get me going.
We'll see. That's all I can say. I don't know what's going to happen, how it's going to play out. But so I used to call her the queen, the bitch. So now he's the son of a bitch.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing at that, but no, I understand. I had to meet them when I was 6 years old, you know, and I didn't go to the front of the line. Yeah, they were doing one of their Canadian tours in '72, and of course my grandmother was, you know, followed all of their stuff, and they were flying into the airport for the afternoon or something. So all the young children were, of course, encouraged to go meet the Queen and her children, and they were encouraged to all dress in their Sunday best. And I got so pissed off that they were taking me away from my play days to put me in a dress to go and meet an old hag. And when I got there, instead of going to the front of the line with flowers like my grandmother had wanted me to hand over to her, I took off and went to the back of the line. So I could see the whole crowd and how they were reacting. I had no interest to go and meet the Queen. Yeah. So I've met them. I've seen them. I haven't met them, but I was very relieved that they were flying out of town that afternoon.
Yeah, the
Summary.
if you follow Kevin and Ed a little bit, you'll find out that they're mass murderers.
Oh yeah, that was the year that they went to Kamloops and did all what he talks about. So yeah, it was like, I'm glad I didn't meet them, eh? No.
Anyways, shall we get this thing going?
Yeah, let's read the Bivens and then we can stop yapping about. I'll
Okay.
stop yapping and I'll yield. Okay, I'll
Got
grab
about-
the Bivens.
We've got about 20 people on YouTube.
Do we? Okay, hi YouTube. I'll grab it. Okay, here we go. I'll read it 3 times. This meeting is private, bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in an appropriate manner. To eliminate all conflict and false allegations, is there anyone in tonight's meeting that is a member or agent of any law enforcement agency of a federal, state, county, city, township, or agency present? This is also for notary, poll workers, school board members, anyone who has signed an oath to the de facto government. Please raise your hand, say your name, and state your position. All clear, good. This meeting is private, bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in an appropriate manner. To eliminate all conflict and false allegations, is there anyone in attendance at tonight's meeting that is a member or agent of any law enforcement agency of a federal, state, county, city, township, agency present? This is also for notary, poll workers, school board members, anyone who has signed an oath to the de facto government. Please raise your hand, say your name, and state your position. Great, no agents tonight, it looks like. One last time, this meeting is private, bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in the appropriate manner. To eliminate all conflict and false allegations, is there anyone in attendance at tonight's meeting that is a member or agent of any law enforcement agency of a federal, state, county, city, or township agency present? This is also for notary, poll workers, school board members, anyone who has signed an oath to the de facto government. Please raise your hand, state your name, and state your position. And then I'll close in saying a small prayer. Please, Lord, allow us to have eyes to see and ears to hear, and bless our meeting. Finish it off, Glenn.
Let it be done.
As it should be done. There you go. Thank you. Take it away.
Okay, so at our last meeting we had on Wednesday, today's Friday. We were talking about the organic law in the United States of America. And the organic law is, if you go to the Office of Law Revision Counsel, which is a U.S. Department of Justice website, it'll tell you that the organic law consists of the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, the Northwest Ordinance, and the Constitution. So all 4 of those documents as one constitute the organic law of the United States of America. And so if you've listened to some of my other documents or shows, I've gone through some of my other documents, and all of the acts of Congress and all of the acts of Texas or any other state are civil laws. And the organic law trumps them. So, anyways, so there was a guy at the last meeting. His name was Bill. I won't say his last name. But he brought up the fact that about the violation of the First Amendment, and I thought, boy, he's right, and so I this is a notice of constitutional challenge, and so I just thought I would go through it. It's not very long, and we can go through something else too, but we'll start off with this at least. So this is a notice of constitutional challenge pursuant to your Rule 5. Comes now the demandants, providing notice to the bought and paid for clerks masquerading as judges in this inferior legislative court and their handlers in the District of Columbia, that their 1871 corporation domiciled in the District of Columbia, guess I better silence that. Just a second. It's amazing how many people always call at the most inopportune times. Anyways, so their 1871 corporation domiciled in the District of Columbia and its minor estate scam, 31 CFR 363.6, are unconstitutional as follows. So, first of all, the District of Columbia 1871 municipal corporation is unconstitutional because it's bringing Roman law onto the land of America. And this is Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. Civil law, Roman civil law are convertible phrases and mean the same system of jurisprudence, that rule of action which every particular nation, commonwealth, or city has established peculiarly for itself, more properly called municipal law, to distinguish it from the law of nature and from international law. And that's Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, which superseded and replaced common laws found in the Causes and Necessities for Taking Up Arms, 1775. Statutes have been passed extending the courts of admiralty and vice admiralty far beyond their ancient limits for depriving us of the accustomed and inestimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law, and instead thereof to publish and order the use and exercise of the law martial. And that's Causes and Necessities for Taking Up Arms, passed by the Continental Congress in 1775. Because common law is the law of the land. And this is Hale versus Henkel. The individual may stand upon his constitutional rights as a citizen. His rights are such as existed by the law of the land long antecedent to the organization of the state. Antecedent means before. Long before the organization of the state, and can only be taken from him by due process of law and in accordance with the Constitution. Among his rights are refusal to incriminate himself and the immunity of himself and his property from arrest or seizure except under a warrant of the law. He owes nothing to the public so long as he does not trespass upon their rights. Which is the same reason why we took up arms against the tyrant. And for all the grievances listed in the Organic Law of the Declaration of Independence, 1776. So the Declaration of Independence is basically a list of grievances. And then the minor estate. 31 CFR 363.6, that the County of Montague and their bar member handlers and the bought and paid for clerks masquerading as judges have assaulted the demandant with, is unconstitutional under Article 1 an amendment, which requires Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. So Article 1 an amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. The minor estate was created by the Vatican, which is the Roman cult. Yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity, for when they were driven out of all their former holes, they devised a new method of conveyance, by which the lands were granted not to themselves directly, but the nominal fiefs to the use of the religious houses, thus distinguishing between the possession and the use, and receiving the actual profits while the season of the land remained in the nominal fief, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy. That's the Roman cult, folks. To be bound in conscience to account to a sestque use for the rents and emoluments of the estate. Well, that's taxes, folks. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. And that's Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, under the volume 2, under the definition of mort main. By the Sestque V Act of 1666, and the tyrant, and this is the actual act, I'm not going to go through it, and was for land titles, and was brought into America with the Code of Law for the District of Columbia, 31 Stat 1432, where it says the legal estate to be in the Sestque use, which is talking about land titles, and a use is short for usufruct under Roman law, which is a type of a trust, and a U.S. citizen minor estate entity is a taxpayer. Every taxpayer is a Sestque trust having sufficient interest in preventing the abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. Citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity operating as a co-trustee and co-beneficiary, the public charitable trust, the constructive Sestque Trust of U.S. Inc. under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debt of the USA and U.S. Inc. Congressional Record, June 13, 1967, pages 15, 641 through 15, 646. So that's 5 pages. That's a summary of what 5 pages of congressional records say. And if anybody's ever seen the congressional record, it's extremely small print. It's 3 columns. So that's a summary of what those 5 pages say. It's also
it's on a It's on a scroll too, correct?
No.
They have it on a scroll so that it's can be put in a time capsule, right? So they can bury it.
I've never heard of that. I've seen it in books. So anyways, it's also talked about as one of the reasons for separation from the tyrant in the organic law of the Declaration of Independence. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for imposing taxes on us without our consent. Those are 2 of the list of grievances in the Declaration of Independence. Janet Yellen and her predecessors used their minor estate entity, GlennWinningham firm, putting the demandant into bondage and enslaving the demandant as collateral for their minor estate, as described in 31 CFR 363.6, because an entity includes an estate of a living person, such as an incompetent or a minor. And this is part of 31 CFR 363.6. And a minor can be an individual who has attained the age of 18 years but has not yet taken control of the securities in his or her minor account. And that's in 31 CFR 363.6. That section's actually not very big. I think I'm going to put that up here too. This is prohibiting. Sorry?
This 363.6 is very obtuse. Not big, but it's obtuse.
Whatever. This is prohibiting the free exercise of the demandant's religious beliefs as a Christian, because the demandant has a right to own property under natural laws found in the Holy Bible, and the Vatican Roman cult is satanic because it's bringing dead things to life, or necromancy, and prohibited. And this is Deuteronomy 18:10-12. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord, and because of these abominations the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee, because they are subjecting to the demandants to their satanic religious ceremony under 18 U.S.C. 247. Whoever, in any of the circumstances referred to in subsection B of this section, intentionally obstructs by force or threat of force any person in the enjoyment of that person's free exercise of religious beliefs or attempts to do so, shall be punished as provided in subsection D. The circumstances referred to in subsection A are that the offense is in or affects interstate or foreign commerce. Under the color of law, 18 U.S.C. 242. Whoever, under color of any law, statute, ordinance, regulation, 31 CFR 363.6 is a regulation, or custom willfully subjects any inhabitant of any state, territory, commonwealth, possession, or district to the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunities secured or protected by the constitutional laws of the United States, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both. And because their bar members were telling them to do it, it's a conspiracy to oppress, to threaten, oppress, and injure the demandant in the free exercise of his right to own land. 18 U.S.C. 241. If two or more persons conspire to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate any person in any state, territory, commonwealth, possession, or district in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him by the constitutional laws of the United States, or because of his having so exercised the same, they shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. I should probably change that. We'll take that out.
That's not long enough.
Sorry?
10 years isn't long enough.
Yeah, you got that right. And bar members are deemed to know the law. Officers of the court have no immunity when violating a constitutional right, for they're deemed to know the law. Where any state proceeds against an individual in a judicial forum, it's well settled that the state, county, municipality, etc., waives any immunity to counters, cross-claims, complaints by direct or collateral means regarding the matters involved. Therefore, it was deliberate, calculated, and malicious. So that's essentially the whole thing. And I gotta serve this on the. I'm gonna send it to the U.S. Attorney General. It says under their rules I have to send it to the U.S. Attorney General. Matter of fact, I was looking up the U.S. Attorney General's website.
Eric has it posted on his Facebook.
It's 950 Pennsylvania Avenue. I just want to make sure, and then I want to get the zip code. Yeah, Northwest 20530-001.
If the courts are being corrupt, you can contact the FBI.
Yeah, right. That's going to help. 20530-0001.
I saw a case that was filed in Cook County, and it has to be heard in Texas just to get a fair trial.
Yeah, you ain't getting a fair trial in Texas.
I don't know, but they're not here. A little strange.
There we go. So, that's pretty well it for this particular document. That's I can't think of anything to put in there other than that. There's no use in making it any longer than I need to. It's just notice. And so under their rules, you have to give them notice. So I'm giving them notice. Now, actually, the case has already gone to the Court of Appeals. So, but it doesn't say that I have to do it before I file the appeal. But the judge has to certify it and send something to the attorney general, and so he can go ahead and do whatever he wants to do. I'm going to send him a copy, and so we'll see what happens from there.
Is that shareable on the wall, or do you have private information in there? So I'd
Sorry?
like to take a look at that. I'd like to take a look at that. If you could post that, that'd be really cool, because you got such good stuff in here.
Yeah, sure, I'll
It
upload
could
it.
apply. Thank you.
It's the Word file is all it is. It's not the file document. Um,
Yeah, you don't see in the yellow pages attorneys advertising that they practice organic law, do you?
but I don't mind getting up in their face. I think they respect it when I get up in their face.
So can you confirm that organic law is natural law?
No, actually, natural law is what's found in the Bible. Natural law, basically, if you read Blackstone, natural law is if you drop it, it will fall. Okay, that's natural law. But natural law also covers, like, there's court cases that actually talk about it. Is that we have no duty to follow your statutes because you can't protect us from God's wrath, and that's natural law too. Oh, there it is. It was numbered. Okay. Oh, 307. Okay. Okay, I'll upload it.
Keep going.
There we go. Notice the constitutional challenge. Anyways, I'd like to get that code of law, that DC code, or not the DC code, that 1871 corporation overturned. That'd be really nice. But just that minor estate. I mean, it's obviously it's the Vatican that's behind it. It says it in Tomlin's Law Dictionary, and so I don't think that's going to be any problem. I guess we'll see. But I'm going to step aside for a minute. I'll be right back.
I use that Act of 1966 in my living will. And that's how I brought it forward.
So your living will, is that for like if you have some hardship or can't control your life choices any longer, and what to do with like your body, do not resuscitate, or perhaps offspring, or what else does that cover?
It's required when you have a trust, and it converts into your will once you pass. So it's basically like your, where you want all your assets to go after you pass. So, and then it also talks about how I'm alive. I'm not the all caps person. So I brought up that act because it's written very simply and very eloquently, very short and sweet compared to other acts that speak on it. So I just went back to the very beginning, and that's what the mentor that was helping me with that living will suggested too. And short to the sweet is kind of the way I try to take this stuff, just so I don't complicate it for others that are trying to interpret what I'm saying, and for my own benefit too, because I'm not an administrator yet. I don't call myself that because paperwork is not really my forte. I'd rather be out digging in the dirt or making cookies for my grandkids, like, or taking my dogs for a walk. So I'm not there yet, but take things as simply as you can, folks. It's the best way forward.
Yeah, I agree. No use in making it complicated. So we'll see what happens. Um, I'm going to file this on Monday. I haven't filed it yet. This guy came up with this on Wednesday, so it's 2 days ago, and I was thinking that I needed to do this, and then today I figured, well, I need to get hot on this, and it was too late to file it today, which is probably good because I'll probably make some adjustments to it between now and Monday, anyways.
Well, I hope that the constitutional challenge will set some minds straight.
Well, unless you ask the question, it's not going to get answered, right?
Send it to Trump too.
Yeah, maybe. But he gets a lot of stuff. I sent to Trump when he was in the first time. I filed, it was a 200-page criminal complaint against Jeff Sessions, and he came out and started bad-mouthing Jeff Sessions. And after that, Jeff Sessions got removed. And so I'll tell you, it's amazing how I send him a copy and he starts coming out bad-mouthing people. So anyways, but right here, this Tomlin's Law Dictionary says it all in a nutshell. This explains it real short and sweet. The thing is Tomlin's Law Dictionary doesn't have page numbers. And so I had to go by the definition it was under. And the definition of mort main is about 4 pages. So, I don't know what to say. That's the best I could do.
So the meeting on Wednesday was, why did they go take this avenue? Was there just because it hasn't been brought up before in your area or what?
Well, we were talking about the organic law, and we were going through the Declaration of Independence. And so it just came up that this guy Bill he's a cantankerous old fart, and he started going off about all sorts of stuff, and some of it you can get, and some of it you can't. But when he talked about that being a violation of the First Amendment, I said, damn, he's got something there. So anyways, I figured, yeah, no joke, he does have something there. And once you see this explanation, I think that you might agree too.
Well, we have the freedom to believe in what faith we want. It doesn't matter. We can't be questioned about that.
Well, that's true. But they can't go and shove their satanic religious ceremony down your throat either. And Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. And that is a law that was initiated by the Roman cult. And it's used to steal your land.
Steal your body with the birth certificate.
Well, that too. But, I'm not bringing that up. I got to stay focused. Yeah. This is about my land. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, we're entitled to be landowners. We're here to be stewards of that land.
That doesn't mean pay a yearly rent. Okay, taxes are nothing less than a yearly rent. And so either you own it or you don't. If you own it, they can't take it away from you for any reason. If they go and if they go after you for property taxes and they steal your land, you know what they do? What they do is they issue a quitclaim deed on whoever buys it. So they steal your land right up underneath you. And then whoever buys it, what they do is they do it's called a unlawful detainer action, which is an action they bring against renters. Try to get you off your land. So it's completely a fraud. It's unconstitutional, and I'm going to break it off in their fucking ass.
Well, then the 6 sheriffs show up and start taking all your shit out of your house and putting it on the
There you
lawn.
go.
That's what they do.
I don't have a house there, but I got a storage unit, and they were certainly threatening that kind of stuff. I paid their extortion. I want it back.
Yeah, and then you're going to get another bill in the mail.
I guess we'll see, won't we?
Mm-hmm.
I told them already, you want to enslave me? You just name a date, time, and location. I'll come armed, and we'll settle it for once and for all.
Make my
you
day.
gonna have a duel? You gonna have a duel with them?
Yeah, he asked for that.
If necessary.
Have you been practicing?
I know how to use an arm. The thing is they're cowards, and they'll never take you up on that. But if they do, good. It's on. Let's fucking get it over with.
But they'll take you up on an orifice party.
What?
An orgy.
Yeah, there you go. Anyways, let's see some of the comments in YouTube. Nowhere in the Constitution is the government permitted to go into debt. That's true. It says in 22 USC 288B is written for the man who knows life starts at fertilization, and the birth certificate is evidence of one's baggage and effects. Oh, that's interesting.
What's the source you're reading from?
I'm looking at the chat at YouTube.
Oh, okay, good. Sorry.
I'll read out our chat. Very smart woman in here just put that Trump is suing Capital One.
I saw that. That's good. For closing bank accounts of the J6 protesters. That's a war crime.
Yeah, I was at the bank on Wednesday dealing with that shit, and I mentioned Tila, thanks to another smart gentleman in here. And things started to move. He was treating me like a second-class citizen when I first walked in, and then I mentioned the Tila complaint, and all of a sudden things kind of changed around.
You know, I saw where was it? I think it was on WhatsApp. A friend of mine sent this to me. It said that where did I see that? Maybe it was on Telegram. Oh, here, my brother sent it to me. Said Alberta lawyer Jeffrey Rath says a delegate is planning to travel to D.C. to pitch President Trump on Alberta statehood.
Alberta's wanted to defect to the States for years.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. My brother he lived in Alberta for many years, but now he's living in BC. He's living north of Kamloops. What's the name of that little town? It's a little town north of Kamloops on Highway 2.
Blue something. Blue Moon.
No. I think it's like about 20 or 30 miles north of Kamloops, maybe 50 miles. It's not to the next big town. Like this is the next big town north of Kamloops. It's
Tamanar.
yeah, it's way before Samanar.
Shuswap Lake.
Yeah, it's on that Shuswap Lake, in fact.
Yeah, I know the town. That's gonna come to me as soon as I get off the phone with you.
Yeah, I'll think of it here. But
I
anyways,
slept there on the summer on my way to a trip. Yeah, I stopped in there. Chase.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's Chase. Yeah, he lives in Chase, BC.
That's very nice there. That's indigenous lands. So yes, he must get along very good with the Brotherhood. Because they run the town, right?
He's a rabble rouser from way back, so I'm sure they like him.
Well, it's a nice position up there to be in. You're central to everything. You've got the lakes of 1,000 beaches. You can rent houseboats and just lounge all day long.
Well, and BC is, I mean, that part of BC is nice at Hartley. Does it even snow up there?
Yes.
No, it does. It gets cold though. Yeah.
It was snowing
No,
in BC
all the
in
Americas
June.
in the East got all the cold.
We had snow
Anyways,
in
it's
BC
pretty
in
nice.
June when I was driving to Alaska.
It's pretty moderate climate, anyways.
Wine country.
Oh yeah, that's true.
They call it California of the North.
You guys also have the Queen's Bargain, Queen Victoria to the indigenous. The Queen's Bargain. I put it in the room.
Oh, Victoria, yeah, that's all tribal nation.
We're tribal.
So I'm just trying to think if there's anything else we want to cover today. How long have we been going? We've been going for about an hour.
Yeah, only an hour. You owe me another hour. Come on, Glenn. Come on. You got something to say. Come on.
Okay.
You don't want to get me going.
Let's get them started.
Okay, so
don't get him started.
Get them going.
What I'm doing is in Casa Grande, Arizona. I have a private mailbox there, and they sent me a letter telling me that I have to provide. You know, when you first open up a mailbox, you gotta show that you live there, and
a
give
civil address.
Yeah, all that stuff. And so but I haven't done that in like years. I mean, I did it when I first moved in there, and I haven't done it since. And now all of a sudden they're telling me I gotta do that stuff, and I'm telling them, sure, no problem. When you give me a Fourth Amendment warrant, I'll be glad to disclose my personal information. And so then they sent me a letter, and so I'm sending them back a little love letter, I guess you might call it.
Same game up here. I had to agree to pay for the box, or they were going to throw me out, put all my mail in general delivery, and then send it back. Okay? That's the game that they're playing now, because all these post office boxes are hooked up to our transmitting utility.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's, open to debate. And I think that I'm going to send them. I've dealt with them before, the post office, and I tell them the way the law is, and they run home to mama. You know what I mean?
Glenn, I got an apology letters from those pukes this week. I'll send it to you. Right at the top of the letter, in red, we apologize.
There you go.
Yeah, that was a win.
There you go. Well, I'm going to share that. Wow. Oh, here we go. There we go. So this is the letter. This is a work in progress, though. I haven't got it done yet. And right now it's about 14 pages long. So there's still going to be changes. But this is basically my standard notice and demand modified for a postmaster.
Is that the same one you sent Google? YouTube, I mean, when they tried to shut your channel down? No.
No. What I sent Google or YouTube is it was by email. And that was a lot shorter. This one's quite long. It's like 14 pages. But so I'll go through why I have all this stuff here.
Yeah, we all have that issue, or dealing with shit like that. So that'd be great.
So I've got it. See at the top, title holder. I have a copy claim. So that's kind of like proprietary. So you can't use it against me, but I can use it against you. So it's to Joe Gomez, who's the postmaster in Casa Grande, Arizona. I did a quick search online and pulled that up, no problem. And so, but notice title holder, GlennWinningham, House of Fern, and it's to Joe Gomez, private man, notice and demand. And there's a footer too. See here? It says page 1 plus attachments, Joe Gomez, private man, notice and demand. This matter / text, copyright by the title holder. All right to this matter / text and what it may represent is by terms and conditions of the title holder. And the title holder is me. And then with the copy claim, and what I do is I'll draw a red line from that edge of that copy claim to the edge of the page, and I'll just put my initials there. So then I initial the bottom right-hand corner of the page, and I own the page. So anyways, a lot of this is pretty standard. It's an ecclesiastical notice for the principal is notice for the agent, and notice for the agent's notice for the principal. I, me, my, or myself, a man, a living soul, a sovereign, an inhabitant of the land of Arizona, and a holder of the office of the people, with an address correction with care of GlennWinningham, House of Fern. Matter of fact, I need to change that too. So I might change some stuff while we're doing this. This is a standard document that I send out, make a few changes, and send it out, and it's going to be by registered mail. Non-domestic mail, care of 1664 East Florence Boulevard, number 4-219, Casa Grande, Arizona, zip code exempt. Without your unlawful corporation, United States, do hereby notice you of the following. So paragraph 1 always says, I accept your oath of office. Private man acting as postmaster, Casa Grande, Arizona, and subordinates and successors. Okay, so I put in all that stuff. So every paragraph is going to say the same thing. Are noticed. and then that's the stuff after that's going to change. So, so you are noticed as implied in your oath that equality under the law is paramount and mandatory by law. Everybody's got to be treated the same. You are noticed as implied in your oath so that if you think or assume you're representing me, the heir of God, you're fired. I can't tell you how many times I send this to lawyers and they just disappear and I never see another one again. You, the private man, are noticed as implied in your oath that neither you nor any other man or woman nor any person is competent in dealing in my affairs. It's all about competence and incompetence. Everything is always about competence and incompetence. You are noticed as implied in your oath, because he has an oath. All postal workers have an oath that I'm competent to dealing in all of my affairs. You are noticed that any communication with me by you, your successors, or your subordinates shall be signed under a penalty of perjury. That makes it so they can't communicate with me because there's no way they're going to sign anything under penalty of perjury. But I need to know that it's the truth and it's not some BS crap. You know what I mean? You are noticed that the Statutory Trust Minor Estate 31 CFR 363-6 names GlennWinningham Fern, Glenn W. Fern, and Fern GlennWinningham, or any derivative thereof, are copyrighted. You, the private man acting as postmaster, are noticed that any violation of my copyright or making a legal determination for me or representing me or communicating with any matter not under penalty of perjury would constitute an acceptance to the fee of 10,000 1 troy ounce pieces of pure silver minimum, or 1,000,000 1 troy ounce pieces of silver if violated for the purpose of profit or gain, or 10,000,000 1 troy ounce pieces of pure silver if violated for the purpose of profit or gain more than 3 times within a year, for each and every violation. I'm telling you, this can easily get into the hundreds of millions of dollars, okay? They send you anything. And then plus it has to be under penalty of perjury, and they never do, okay? So again, there's, remember, in any matter not under penalty of perjury, communicating in any manner, representing me, legal determination for me, okay? That's called practicing law without a license. Matter of fact, I think I'll just add that in right now.
Yeah, and change that M on the million to a B for a billion. Don't fuck around.
Well, it gets, what happens is when you get up to that amount of money, nobody takes it seriously. That if you make a and that's true. We've won cases here in Texas where we just stand the ground. That cop is practicing law without a license. He made a legal determination for me. He can't make a legal determination for me without practicing law. And he doesn't have a license. Do you have a license to practice law? I'm telling you, if they don't want to go there. You are noticed that any violation is described in the paragraph above. I think I'll just modify that slightly. Paragraph 8 above would constitute an agreement that I could seek relief from you, all your corporate officers and directors, as well as your parent corporations and its officers and directors, jointly, severally, and personally. You are noticed as implied in your oath that pursuant to 18 U.S.C. section 1342, my proper name is GlennWinningham, House of Fern, and my proper postal address is this. And if it's not shown exactly like this in any communication with me, it is further agreed by you, your subordinates, and your successors that you intend to be guilty of mail fraud. I'm telling you, this nails them down, I'm telling you. You are noticed as implied in your oath that any communication to the Statutory Trust Minor Estate or any derivative thereof, in addition to the copyright violations, it is treason, breach of trust, sedition, perjury of oath, and other felony offenses because they're criminally converting my name for the specific purpose of violating my God-given rights, because a trust has no rights and is a slave property under the Commerce Clause, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3. Because the boundaries of the District of Columbia expand spans for the purpose as though the District of Columbia expands for the purpose
You always say 10 miles square.
that's true.
Glenn, I did an adverse claim and I started off because it was suggested by some very great minds that I thank them for their wonderful service right off the bat. So I open with, thank you for your wonderful service.
Oh, well, thank you.
Your
Not a problem.
continued wonderful service.
It's a network thing.
I like to say thank you for your honest services, because that's a crime when they violate honest services. Title 18, 1346.
What about that, Glenn? Are you going to throw that in there? Are you going to
1340.
thank them at the end? Yeah, they like titles.
Which is a plenary jurisdiction. Plenary jurisdiction, the court's full and absolute power over the subject matter and the parties in the case. Plenary is full, complete, and power. That's a dictatorship. Plenary power, complete power over a particular area with no limitations. The term is often used to describe the commerce power of Congress. Under the Commerce Clause, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, Congress is granted full power over interstate commerce. You know, I ought to put that in my other document there, too. Let's see here. Yeah, I got to add that in. I'll think about where I'm going to put it later. To call it a contract with the objective of denying common law. There are no common law offenses against the United States, only those acts which Congress has forbidden with penalties for disobedience of its command or crimes. Your notice is implied in your oath that all living souls that are inhabiting the land known as Arizona and are all American nationals, because of common law, anyone who's on the land has all the rights protected by common law, and they have no more rights. They have more rights than one of your 14th Amendment U.S. citizen minor estate. U.S. citizens / minor estates. You are noticed that your military troops on the border are engaged in sedition by forcing their foreign martial law on me in violation of 18 U.S.C. 2384. Do I even want that? I might just take that out. I think I will. There we go. Gone. Your notice is implied in your oath. The word person and whoever are only used for corporations and fictitious entities under the maximum statutes in justum generis, because the word include is limiting, and an individual's only a 31 CFR 363.6 minor estate fictitious entity. This is Title 1, Section 1. The word person and whoever includes corporation, companies, associations, firms, partnerships, joint stock companies, as well as individuals. So under adjustum generis that we're going to go through here in a minute, when in a definition section, when they list a bunch of things, they're all the same type of things. So because these are all corporations, then individual is also a corporation. You are notices implied in your oath because the maximum of law, justum generis. In definition section of statutes, the entities listed are all the same kind of entities. Justum generis of the same kind, class, or nature in the construction of laws, wills, and other instruments. The justum generis rule is that where general words following an enumeration of persons or things by words of a particular or specific meaning, such general words are not to be construed in their widest extent, but are to be held as applying only to persons or things of the same general kind or class as those specifically mentioned. Example,
Specifically mentioned.
yeah, if a law
They
refers
just
to
said there were things.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
No, well, they said specific, and then before that they called us a thing. So that's very vast. And then they're trying to, pinpoint it. That makes no sense.
Example, if a law refers to automobiles, trucks, tractors, motorcycles, and other motor-powered vehicles, that's the general term, motor-powered vehicles. Vehicles would not include airplanes, since the list was a land-based transportation. Adjustum generis, a canon of construction that when a general word or phrase follows a list of specifics, the general word or phrase will be interpreted to include only those items of the same type as those listed. For example, in the phrase horses, cattle, sheep, pigs, goats, or any other farm animal, the general language of any other farm animal, despite its seeming breadth, would probably be held to include only four-legged hoofed mammals typically found on farms, and thus would exclude chickens. You are noticed, as implied under your oaths, that in statute writing the maximum of law says that the word includes means only that which comes after it, and it exclude all else by its use. Inclusio, the inclusion of one to the exclusion of another. That's Bouvier's Law Dictionary, 1856 edition. Expresso unus, I don't know, it's Latin. Anyways, a canon of construction holding that to express or include one thing implies the exclusion of the other. Or in the alternative, for example, the rule each citizen entitled to vote implies that non-citizens are not entitled to vote. You are noticed that as implied in your oaths that in statute writing the word includes is a word of limitation. This is U.S. Supreme Court case Montello Salt versus Utah. Include, or the participial form thereof, is defined to comprise within, to hold, to contain, enclose, comprise, comprehend, embrace, involve. Include, to confine within, to hold, to contain, as the shell of a nut includes the kernel. A pearl is included in a shell, but the senses we more commonly use enclose. To comprise, to comprehend, to contain, and that's American Dictionary of English Language, Noah Webster, 1828. And this is Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. Include, to shut in, to keep in, keep within, to confine within, to hold as an enclosure, take in, attain, shut up, contain, enclose, comprise, comprehend, embrace, involve. And that's quoting Premier Products Company versus Cameron. Include, under Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, to confine within, to hold as an enclosure, take in, attain, shut up, contain, enclose, comprise, comprehend, embrace, involve. And they're quoting some court cases. So include is limiting. So when they say, The words person and whoever includes corporations, companies, associations, firms, partnerships, societies, joint stock companies, as well as individuals. That means it's only corporations, companies, associations, firms, partnerships, societies, joint stock companies, and individuals. And they're all fictions. Your notice is implied in your oath that it's a felony for whoever to claim to be a minor state/U.S. citizen when it's known that they're not. Even though I can prove I'm not a whoever, I do not bear false witnesses. Therefore, I cannot claim to be a minor state/U.S. citizen when I know that I'm not. And for anyone else to claim that I'm a minor state/U.S. citizen, it's felony false personation. Whoever falsely and willfully represents himself to be a citizen of the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. You, the private man, our notice is implied in your oath that a minor state U.S. citizen is a person. All persons born and naturalized in the United States, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, are citizens of the United States. You are noticed that your hired thugs operate exclusively under color of law, and I demand and have my God-given rights as affirmed and secured by the organic law of the United States of America, the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, the Northwest Ordinance, and the Constitution for the United States of America, not to be subjected to your foreign martial law jurisdiction under color of law. Color means an appearance, a semblance, or a simulacrum as distinguished from that which is real, a prima facie or apparent right, hence a deceptive appearance, a plausible assumed exterior concealing a lack of reality, a disguise or a pretext. Colorable means that which is an appearance only, not in reality what it purports to be, hence counterfeit, feigned, having the appearance of truth. Yeah. There we go. Color of law means
Your mic is off.
sorry?
Yeah, I know you cut out.
Yeah, I was making some changes. Color of law means the appearance or semblance without the substance of legal right. Misuse of power possessed by virtue of state law and made possible only because wrongdoer is clothed with authority of state is action taken under color of law. Your notice is implied in your oath that I'm not a person as far as your statutes are concerned, because a person is a variety of entities other than human beings, Church of Scientology versus U.S. Department of Justice, foreigners, not citizens, U.S. versus otherson. The term person may include labor organizations, partnerships, associations, corporations, legal representatives, trustees in bankruptcy, or receivers. Scope and delineation of the term is necessary for determining those whom the 14th Amendment of the Constitution affords protection, since this amendment expressly applies to person. And that's Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. And I need to add in a page number there. So I'll just highlight that. And a sovereign is not a person in the legal sense as far as the statute is concerned. In common uses, the term person does not include the sovereign, and statutes employing the word are normally construed to exclude it. There was a case back in the 90s. There was Bill Murphy. I don't know if you know who Bill Murphy is. He was involved with the GATA, which is Gold Antitrust Action Committee. And they sued the U.S. government for manipulating the price of gold. And you know how the U.S. government, under the Antitrust Act, they sued them under the Antitrust Act. And you know what the U.S. government came back and said? What they said is, the Antitrust Act doesn't apply to us. And they were right.
That's when everybody found out that the Federal Reserve was a private entity, correct?
Well, they've known that from a long time. But anyways, that could be when some people found out about it. A sovereign is not a person in a legal sense. Henry Fox. Okay, that's Robert Fox. I don't know how many of you know who Robert Fox was. He's passed away now. But I knew him. I talked to him on a bunch of occasions. Brilliant guy. He is missed. Your notice is implied unto your oaths that the only legitimate power held by any government entity is power that we the people have delegated, and we the people are not subject to your codes, rules, and regulations, and I demand and have my God-given right to complete and total access to all of my common law rights as affirmed and secured by the Magna Carta, the Northwest Ordinance, the Articles of Confederation, and the U.S. Constitution. And I need to add in, actually, I don't need to put the Magna Carta, I need to put in the Declaration of Independence. Sovereignty itself is, of course, not subject to law, for it is the author and source of law. While sovereign powers are delegated to the agencies of government, sovereignty itself remains with the people, by whom and for whom all government exists and acts. The governments are but trustees acting under derived authority and have no power to delegate what's not delegated to them. But the people, as the original fountain, might take away what they have delegated and entrust to whom they please. The sovereignty in every state resides in the people of the state, and they may alter and change their form of government at their pleasure. You are noticed as implied in your oaths that I'm a sovereign citizen, as evidenced by the resolution of Congress, because we have a Republican form of government, and we're all sovereign citizens, as evidenced by House Joint Resolution 183, dated May 3rd, 1940, at 54th Stat 178, says in the preamble, whereas it is desirable that the sovereign citizens of our nation be prepared for the responsibilities and impressed with the significance of their status in our self-governing republic. And as affirmed by Harold M. Stevens, Chief Judge of the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit, in this article in the American Bar Association Journal, Volume 37, Number 4, April 1951, entitled Citizenship, the Real Profession of Every American. And then it says in there, if our sovereign citizens are not informed about such subjects, how can they intelligently participate in determination of pertinent national policies? You are noticed, as implied in your oath, that we the people have all the rights of the king or queen as applicable. The people are sovereign and not bound by general words and statutes, restrictive of prerogative, right, title, or interest unless expressly named. Acts of limitation do not bind the king or the people. The people have been ceded all the rights of the king, the former sovereign. It's a maxim of the common law that when an act is made for the common good and to prevent injury, the king shall be bound, though not named. But when a statute is general and prerogative right would be divested or taken from the king or the people, he shall not be bound. Every citizen or freeman is endowed with certain rights and privileges to enjoy which no written law or statute is required. These are fundamental or natural rights recognized among all free people. And I think I'll add that into that case, too. Matter of fact, I think I'll do that right now while we're talking. There we go. You are noticed as implied in your oath that you have no immunity whatsoever, because all officers of all government are presumed to know the law, and the Constitution of the United States of America requires it, and I demand and have my God-given rights, and all of those private men and women acting as public servants and are held to their oaths, and all that their oaths imply. An officer who acts in violation of the Constitution ceases to represent the government, Ignorance of the law does not excuse misconduct in anyone, least of all a sworn officer of the law. You're noticed that you're not authorized nor shall you serve commercial process on me. You're noticed that the so-called 14th Amendment is for slaves. The 14th Amendment referred to slavery, consequently the only person embraced by its provisions and for which Congress was authorized to legislate in the manner were those then in slavery. No white person born within the limits of the United States and subject to their jurisdiction or born without those limits and subsequently naturalized under their laws owes his status of citizenship to the recent amendments to the federal Constitution. All citizens of the United States shall have the same right in every state and territory as is enjoyed by white citizens thereof to inherit, purchase, lease, sell, hold, and convey real and personal property. That's Title 42, United States Code, Section 1982, to this day. You look it up and it'll be there. The term resident and citizen of the United States is distinguished from a citizen in one of the several states, and that the former is a special class of citizen created by Congress. You are noticed as implied in your oath that you're my agent. The government's but an agent of the state being a sovereign people. A state does not owe its origin to the government of the United States in the highest of its branches. It was in existence before it. It derives its authority from the same pure and sacred source as itself, the voluntary and deliberate choice of the people. You, the private man, are noticed as implied in your oath that the Internal Revenue Code and the Transportation Code and the Immigration Code and the Customs Code are not positive law, and you have no authority whatsoever to impose anything in any of them, and you shall not attempt to impose anything in any color of law, statutes, codes, rules, and regulations on me. Are noticed that because I am a sovereign living soul and a holder of the office of the people and inhabitant of the land of Arizona, which also holds true that I'm not a person as found in any of your corporate commercial codes, rules, and regulations, and therefore your law merchant, aka private international law, aka martial law, aka canon law, does not apply to me. And if you, your successors, or your subordinates attempts to impose one of your law merchant so-called contracts upon me, your subordinate and you will be engaging in perjury of oath, sedition, treason, as well, and giving aid and comfort to the enemy in time of war. And this is Doan's Penhallow versus Doan's Administrators. Inasmuch as every government's an artificial person, an abstraction, and a creature of the mind only, a government can only interface with other artificial persons. The imaginary, having neither actuality nor substance, is foreclosed from creating and attaining parity with the tangible. The legal manifestation is that no government, as well as any law, agency, aspect, court, etc., can concern itself with anything other than corporate artificial persons and the contracts between them. No action can be taken against a sovereign in the non-constitutional courts of either the United States or the state. Any such action is considered a crime of barratry. Barratry is an offense at common law. Where any state proceeds against private individual in a judicial forum, it is well settled that the state, county, municipality waives any immunity to counters, cross-claims, and complaints by direct or collateral means regarding the matters involved. When enforcing mere statutes, judges of all courts do not act judicially and thus are not protected by qualified or limited immunity, but merely act as an extension or agent of the involved agency, but only in a ministerial and not a discretionary capacity. Immunity for judges does not extend which are clearly outside their jurisdiction. Where there's no jurisdiction, there's no judge. The proceeding is as nothing. Such has been the law from the days of Marshal Sea. So, and there's actually the Department of Justice, the Solicitor General, has come out and made a statement that they're not going to defend these administrative courts anymore. They're unconstitutional. And they're not going to defend them. And so that's why, my case could well end up in the Supreme Court, and I'll do it the same way that I've always done it, is I'll tell the Supreme Court that you have no right to turn this case away and you have no right to tax me because I'm the people. And so then, we'll see what happens. But that's what's happened before, and every one of my cases got docketed. I can tell you that in the past, there's been people that I know where they went to the Supreme Court and the cases were turned away and they don't even get docketed. Well, my cases were all docketed. I can give you docketing numbers for every one of them. So anyways, keep moving. And all judgments entered in my case are void judgments, and I can collateral attack them in any way at any time, because the courts have further decreed want of jurisdiction makes all acts of judges, magistrates, U.S. marshals, sheriffs, local police, all void, not just voidable, void. You are notices implied in your oath that the use of any statutes, codes, rules, regulations, or court citations within a document created by me at any time is only note that which is applicable to you, and is not intended, nor shall it be construed to mean that I have conferred to, submitted to, or entered into any jurisdiction alluded to thereby. Your notice is implied in your oath that while I do travel on the land known as Arizona and elsewhere on Turtle Island from time to time, but I am not even remotely interested in being in your criminal corporation called United States, or any of its political subdivisions called State of Arizona or State of Tennessee or State of Delaware, and any of your municipal corporations, and I shall not be, or any of your municipal corporations, and I shall not be in any of your municipal corporations. There has been created a fictional federal state of XXX within a state. And any attempt by you or your subordinates to coerce or intimidate me into your municipal corporation is perjury of oath, treason, and sedition at a minimum by whoever does it and you. Your notice is implied by your oath that my rights are unalienable, as found in the positive law embodied in the Declaration of Independence, which means they cannot be alienated under any circumstances, and you and your subordinates know this, because they always criminally convert my name in some way to all block capital letters into a dead thing. To facilitate their violation of my rights. It will be admitted on all hands that, with the exception of the powers granted to the states and the federal government through the Constitution, the people of the several states are unconditionally sovereign within their respective states. You our notice is implied in your oath that any so-called contract that appears to alienate any of my God-given rights as one of the people involving any government in America or any agency or any government in any agency of any government in America is a nullity, because the government cannot commit treason, and any presumption to the contrary by any officer of any so-called court is perjury of oath, treason, and sedition at a minimum. You'll notice that all so-called courts in the United States are corporate commercial courts, tribunals, and operate exclusively under martial law, which originates with canon law in the Vatican, in violation of God's law in Deuteronomy 4:2. And this is Balzac versus People of Puerto Rico. The United States District Court is not a true United States court established under Article 3 to administer the judicial power of the United States, but was created by virtue of the sovereign congressional faculty granted under Article 4, Section 3, making all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory belong to the United States. Now let's check YouTube and see what kind of chat I've got going on here. Somebody wants to contact me. engineerwin@yahoo.com. Yep. Okay.
And you didn't even offend any pigs.
Sorry?
Sorry, someone else was talking. This is a far cry from your last one. You didn't even offend any pigs or pigs or well,
this
not offending anyone.
This is not
really
a nasty ground.
well written. I really love this. This is so filled with so much law and just style and etiquette and and just such great verbiage and truths. I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Well, I can upload it. This is a standard notice and demand. I mean, what happens is I send these out by registered mail, so it's kind of expensive. I don't normally send them out anymore. I used to send them out. I've sent out literally thousands of these things. They didn't always used to be so long. This one is 14 pages. And what page are we on right now? 7. We're halfway through it. I don't think we're going to get all the way through it because we're an hour and a half in, so I don't want to go past a couple hours. But you know, I can upload this document to the group, and it's not my finished document, but it's easy enough to manipulate. But let's wait. Let's towards the end, and then if I make any changes, then it'll be after I make the changes. You are noticed that if you are dealing with a person, which is a fictitious entity, what you did was perfectly appropriate because I told you I was one of the people and God's heir and not a fictitious entity. And every document that I served on you that you deliberately and calculatedly. See here.
Yeah, I agree, Mary. Seeing the build of the documents has helped me to put it together, you know.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, so you're noticed that if you're dealing with a person, which is a fictitious entity, I'm just trying to, I got to change the wording on this. The wording's kind of funny. So I'll just highlight it. But because I told you I was one of the people and God's heir and not a fictitious entity, and every document that I served on you that you deliberately and calculatedly perjured your oaths by imposing your equity under martial law, which is for persons only, which is criminal conversion of my citizenship from the land of Arizona to the foreign jurisdiction of the United States, and what I should do here, comma, in violation Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. People of the state are entitled to all rights which formerly belonged to the king by his prerogative. It will be admitted on all hands that with the exceptions of the powers granted to the states and the federal government through the Constitution, the people of the several states are unconditionally sovereign within their respective states. One sovereign does not need to tell another sovereign he or she is sovereign. The sovereign is merely sovereign by his very existence. The rule in America is that the American people are the sovereigns. Your notice is implied in your oath that I'm not one of your 14th Amendment citizen. There's a clear distinction between national citizenship and state citizenship. Privilege Immunities Clause of the 14th Amendment protects very few rights because it is neither incorporates the Bill of Rights nor protects all rights of individual citizens. Instead, this provision protects only those rights peculiar to being a citizen of the federal government. It does not protect those rights which relate to state citizenship. And this is 1993 court case. There is in our political system a government of each of the several states and a government of the United States. Each is distinct from the other and has citizens of its own. A person who is a citizen of the United States is necessarily a citizen of a particular state in which he resides, but a person may be a citizen of a particular state and not a citizen of the United States. To hold otherwise would be to deny to the state the highest exercise of its sovereignty, a right to declare who are its citizens. One may be a citizen of a state and yet not a citizen of the United States. Both before and after the 14th Amendment to the federal Constitution, it has not been necessary for a person to be a citizen of the U.S. in order to be a citizen of his state. There are two classes of citizens of the United States and of the state, and one may be a citizen of the former without being a citizen of the latter. So that's the opposite. The former is the United States and the latter is the state, right? So you can be a U.S. citizen without being a state citizen. The United States Supreme Court quite thoroughly expanded on the two classes of citizens in the case Maxwell versus Dow, where it said that there was a citizen of the United States and a citizenship of the states, which were distinct from each other depending on different characteristics and circumstances in the individual, but that it was only privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States that were placed by the amendment under the protection of the federal Constitution, and that the privileges and immunities of a citizen of a state, whatever they might be, were not intended to have any additional protection by the paragraph in question, but they must rest for their security and protection where they have heretofore rested, which means common law. The privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States do not necessarily include all the rights protected by the first 8 amendments of the federal government to the federal Constitution against the powers of the federal government. As a state citizen, I'm one of the sovereign people, as part of the sovereign body of people, and I have all the rights of the king. The words people of the United States and citizens are synonymous terms and mean the same thing. They both describe our political body, who, according to our Republican institutions, form the sovereignty and who hold the power and conduct the government through their representatives. They are what we familiarly call the sovereign people, and every citizen is one of this people and a constituent member of the sovereignty. The people are sovereign and not bound by general words and statutes restrictive of prerogative, right, title, or interest, excuse me, unless expressly named. Acts of limitation do not bind the king or the people. The people have been ceded all the rights of the king, the former sovereign. At the Revolution, the sovereignty devolved on the people, and they are truly the sovereigns of the country. The citizens of America are equal as fellow citizens, as joint tenants in the sovereignty. People of a state are entitled to all the rights which belong to the king by his prerogative. It will be admitted on all hands that, with the exception of the powers granted to the states and the federal government through the constitutions, the people of the several states are unconditionally sovereign within their respective states. And governments are my agents with authority that I delegate, and everything they do with authority is under my authority and consistent only with the 4 corners of lex scripta and lex non scripta, and to do otherwise negates their authority, thereby turning them into criminals and usurpers of the law. The government's but an agency of the state being the sovereign people. No state legislator or executive or judicial officer can war against the Constitution without violating his undertaking to support it. The constitutional theory is that we, the people, are the sovereigns. The state and federal officials only are agents. A sovereign is exempt from suit, not because of any formal conception or obsolete theory, but on the logical and practical ground that there can be no legal right as against the authority that makes the law on which the right depends. And that is a brilliant statement right there. I mean, that just nails it. Governments are but trustees acting under derived authority and have no power to delegate what is not delegated to them. But the people, as the original fountain, might take away what they have delegated and trust to whom they please. The sovereignty in every state resides in the people of the state, and they may alter and change their form of government at their own pleasure. There is nothing the government can do to affect we the people. Sovereignty itself is, of course, not subject to law, for it is the author and source of law. But in our system, all sovereign powers are delegated to the agencies of government. Sovereignty itself remains with the people, by whom and for whom all government exists and acts. There is no such thing as the power of inherent sovereignty in the government of the United States. In this country, sovereignty resides in the people, and Congress can exercise no power which they have not, by their Constitution, entrusted to it. All else is withheld. And as a member of the sovereignty, I'm completely immune from those laws with lex scripta and lex non scripta. A state citizen is immune from any and all government attacks and procedure absent contract. Every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He's not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow men without his consent. The rights of individuals are restricted only to the extent that they've been voluntarily surrendered by citizenship to the agencies of government. State citizens are the only ones living under free government whose rights are incapable of impairment by legislation or judicial decision. State citizenship is a vested substantial property right, and the state has no power to divest or impair these rights. The sovereignty of a state does not reside in the persons who fill the different departments of its government, but in the people, from whom the government emanated, and they may change it at their discretion. Sovereignty, then, in this country abides with the constituency, not with the agent, and this remark is true both in reference to the federal and state government. And as a sovereign, I'm also a non-taxpayer. Persons who are not taxpayers are not within the scope, not within the system, and can obtain no benefit by following the procedures prescribed for taxpayers, such as filing of claims for refunds. Revenue laws are a code or a system of regulation and tax assessment and collection. They relate to taxpayers and not to non-taxpayers. The latter are without their scope. No procedure are prescribed for non-taxpayers, and no attempt is made to annul any of their rights and remedies in due course of law. With them, Congress does not assume to deal, and they are neither the subject nor the object of the revenue laws. Taxpayers are not state citizens. And any attempt to cause me injury with their so-called prosecutions is a common law crime of bearing false witness, adultery, theft, Baal worship, necromancy, and other transgressions of the law set up in the Pentateuch, in modern language, barratry. Pentateuch is the first 5 books of the Bible. No action can be taken against a sovereign in the non-constitutional courts of either the United States or the state courts, and any such action is considered a crime of barratry. Barratry is an offense at common law. Where there is no jurisdiction, there is no judge. The proceeding is as nothing. Such has been the law from the days of Marshal Saya. Because I'm a state citizen, I'm also a judicial power citizen. The judicial power is the power to hear those matters which affect life, liberty, or property of the citizens of the state. You're noticed that is implied in your oath that the rights of state citizens are unaffected by the 14th Amendment. The rights of the original citizens of the states as such are not under consideration in the 14th Amendment, and they stand as they did before the 14th Amendment and are fully guaranteed by other provisions. The United States Supreme Court quite thoroughly expanded on the 2 classes of citizens, and that's actually already said. And all of this is because of the law of nature as described by Blackstone and common law. Law of nature, being coeval with mankind and dictated by God himself, is of course superior in obligation over any other. It is binding over all the globe and all countries and at all times. No human laws are of any validity as contrary to this, and such of them as are valid derive all their force and all their authority immediately or immediately from this original. Every citizen and freeman is endowed with certain rights and privileges to enjoy which no written law or statute is required. They are fundamental or natural rights recognized among all free people. As a general rule, men have the right to do anything which their inclination may suggest if it be not evil in itself and in no ways impairs the rights of others. All acts of the legislature apparently contrary to natural rights and justice are in our law and must be in the nature of things considered as void. The laws of nature are the laws of God, whose authority can be superseded by no power on earth. A legislature must not obstruct our obedience to him from whose punishments they cannot protect us. All human constitutions which contradict God's laws, we are in conscience bound to disobey. I mean, well said. And the first 10 amendments and first 10 articles and amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America are intended to protect certain common law rights of the federal government. History is clear that the first 10 amendments of the Constitution were adopted to secure certain common law rights of the people against invasion by the federal government. And the law of the land is common law and not a statute. The principle that no person should be deprived of life, liberty, or property except by due process of law did not originate with the American system of constitutional law, but was contained in the Magna Carta, sometimes referred to as Chapter 29, conferred on the 19th day of June, 1215, declared, no freeman shall be taken or imprisoned or seized or outlawed or exiled or destroyed or in any ways destroyed, nor shall we go upon him nor send upon him, but by the lawful judgment of his peers or by the law of the land. See, what they're doing is they put a stop to their non-judicial courts, okay, because that's what they were doing, and that puts a stop to it. It has even been said that the principle was known before the Magna Carta, and that it was originally designed to secure the subject against arbitrary action of the Crown and to place him under the protection of the law. It is settled beyond question that this principle came from England to America as part of the common law and has been our fundamental rule in common law. When first adopted in Magna Carta, the phrase law of the land had reference to the common law and has been a fundamental rule in common law, and that's Book 16, American Jurisprudence, 2nd edition, Constitutional Law, Section 543. And all of these rights and other common law rights were only affirmed by the Magna Carta and the Constitution of the United States of America, and they existed prior to the existence of any government. And I have the right to do anything as long as I cause damage to no man, woman, or child or their property. And my rights are not defined anywhere because I have unlimited rights. And this is Hale versus Henkel. The individual may stand upon his constitutional rights as a citizen. He is entitled to carry on his private business in his own way. His power to contract is unlimited. He owes no duty to the state or to his neighbors to divulge his business or to open his door to an investigation so far as it may tend to incriminate him. He owes no such duty to the state since he receives nothing therefrom beyond the protection of his life, liberty, and property. His rights are such as existed by the law of the land long antecedent to the organization of the state. That's long before. It's always been here. The law of the land has always been here and can only be taken from him by due process of law and in accordance with the Constitution. Among his rights are refusal to incriminate himself and the immunity of himself and his property from arrest or seizure except under a judicial power warrant, a warrant of the law. He owes nothing to the public so long as he does not trespass upon their rights. Notice that you have no immunity when dealing with me. Qualified immunity protects government officials from liability for civil damages insofar their conduct does not violate clearly established statutory or constitutional rights of which the reasonable person would have known. Qualified immunity defense fails if public officer violates clearly established right because a reasonably competent official should know the law governing his conduct. A plaintiff who seeks damages for violation of constitutional rights or statutory rights may overcome the defendant official's qualified immunity only by showing that those rights were clearly established at the time of the conduct at hand, at issue. You'll notice that there's no judicial courts in America and have not been since 1789. There's no judicial courts in America. There have not been since 1789. Judges do not enforce statutes and codes. Executive administrators enforce statutes and codes. There have not been any judges in America. They've just been administrators. You'll notice that a U.S. citizen is defined by the so-called 14th Amendment to be completely subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and therefore is not one of we the people, but is a corporation, a cesticate trust, or other fictitious entity. Persons declared to be citizens are all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The evident meaning of these last words are not merely subject in some respect or degree of the jurisdiction of the United States, but completely subject. It is evidence that they, U.S. citizens, have not the political rights which are vested in citizens of the states. They are not constituents of any community of which it's vested any sovereign power of government. Their position partakes more of the character of subjects than of citizens. They're subject to the laws of the United States, but have no voice in its management. And they're allowed to make laws. The validity of those laws are derived from the sanction of a government in which they're not represented. Mere citizenship they may have, but the political rights of citizens they cannot enjoy. Subject may imply a state of subjection to a person, such as a monarch, without much sense of membership in a political community or sharing in political rights. It may, on the other hand, simply indicate membership in a political community with a personal sovereign in whom allegiance is owed. The term citizen in the United States is analogous to the term subject in the common law. But the U.S. citizen is a fictitious entity and has no rights. Therefore, U.S. citizens residing in one of the states of the Union is classified as property and franchises of the federal government as an individual entity. In our opinion, it's not the intent of the legislature to restrict the operation of the statute to those only who were subjects of the United States government. On the other hand, the 14th Amendment, upon the subject of citizenship, declares only that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Here there is a limitation to person born or naturalized in the United States, which is not extended to persons born in any place subject to their jurisdiction. A U.S. citizen, upon leaving the District of Columbia, becomes involved in interstate commerce as a resident, does not have common law right to travel, and a citizen of one of the several states. The right to trial by jury in civil cases guaranteed by the Seventh Amendment and the right to bear arms guaranteed by the Second Amendment have been distinctly held not to be privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States guaranteed by the 14th Amendment against abridgment by the states. And in effect, the same decision was made in respect to the guaranteed right against prosecution except by indictment of a grand jury contained in the Fifth Amendment, and in the respect of a right to be confronted with witnesses contained in the Sixth Amendment. The technical niceties of common law are not regarded. A jury does not figure ordinarily in the trial of an admiralty suit. The verdict of the jury merely advisory and may be disregarded by the court. The rules of practice may be altered whenever it's found inconvenient or likely to embarrass the business of the court. Yeah, we want to convict this guy, so let's modify our rules and just convict his ass. The Court of Admiralty acts upon equitable principles. A libel of information accusation does not require all the technical precision of an indictment at common law. If the allegation describes the offense, it is all that is necessary, and if it is founded upon a statute, it is sufficient if it pursues the word of the law. And that's the Emily versus the Caroline. The Privileged Immunities Clause of citizens of the United States do not necessarily include all the rights protected by the first 8 amendments to the federal Constitution against the powers of the federal government. The 14th Amendment referred to slavery. Consequently, the only persons embraced by its provisions and for which Congress was authorized to legislate in the matter were those then in slavery. I've read that case already. The term resident and citizen of the United States is distinguished from a citizen of one of the several states in that the former is a special class of citizen created by Congress. And because a U.S. citizen is a subject, it may also be taxed. A tax is an impost, a tribute imposed on the subject. An excise, a tallage. In public law, taxation signifies the system for raising money for public purposes by compelling the payment by individuals of sums of money called taxes. Some general principles of taxation are said to be the subjects of every state ought to contribute to the support of the government as nearly as possible in proportion to their respective abilities. That is, in proportion to the revenue which they respect under the protection of the state. Revenue, that means it's a corporation. Think about it. Slater's protestations to the effect that he derives no benefit from the United States government have no bearing on his legal obligations to pay income taxes. Unless the defendant can establish that he's not a citizen of the United States, the IRS possesses authority to attempt to determine his federal tax liability. A taxpayer is assessed to pay trust. Every taxpayer is assessed to pay trust having sufficient interest in preventing abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. Therefore, a Social Security number is a number for a cestui trust, U.S. citizen, minor estate, and has no rights except those granted by Congress. The only absolute and unqualified right of a United States citizen is to residence within the territorial boundaries of the United States. After the adoption of the 14th Amendment, a bill which became the first Civil Rights Act was introduced by the 39th Congress, the major purpose of which was to secure to the recently freed Negroes all the civil rights secured to white men. None other than the citizens of the United States were within the provisions of the Act. A U.S. citizen had no right to the custody of their children. Civil rights under the 14th Amendment are for federal citizens and not state citizens. Federal citizens as parents have no right to the custody of their infant children except subject to the paramount right of the state. Your notice is implied under your oath. Let's see, where am I at? 12. Getting close. Your notice is implied in your oath that I shall completely ignore your code's rules and regulations because they do not apply to me. And any of your hired thugs, color of law code enforcers, perceive any obedience by me to any of your code's rules or regulations, it shall be viewed to be a mistake or an accident. The claim and exercise of a constitutional right cannot be converted into a crime. No state shall convert a liberty into a privilege, license it, and charge a fee therefor. There can be no sanction or penalty imposed upon one because of his exercise of constitutional rights. If a state converts a right or a liberty into a privilege, the citizen can ignore the license and fee and engage in the right with impunity. Except to say that if I expect common law remedies, I have to accept common law responsibilities, which means I have to have respect for other people and their rights, including their right not to be injured by me. Therefore, I have to travel safely, and as an example, if I'm following a speed limit, it's not to be viewed by you and your subordinates that it's because I'm concerned about following any of your code, rules, or regulations, but it should be viewed that I'm trying not to cause injury to my neighbors who are also on the road or my neighbors who are beside the road. You're noticed that the 13th Amendment and all subsequent amendments of the United States are martial law amendments under color of law and have no authority. The dissenting opinion asserts that the 14th Amendment is part of the Constitution of the United States. While this same assertion has been made by the United States Supreme Court, that court has never held that the amendment was legally adopted, and I cannot believe that any court in full possession of its faculties could honestly hold that the amendment was properly approved and adopted. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were designed mainly for the protection of the newly emancipated Negroes. You'll notice that as a government employee, you're an individual, as a U.S. citizen, as found in Title V United States Code entitled Records Maintained on Individuals. The term individual means a citizen of the United States or alien lawfully admitted. All government employees have Social Security numbers, and therefore all government employees at all levels of government are U.S. citizens, or resident aliens, actually. The term federal personnel means officers and employees of the government of the United States, members of the uniformed services, including members of the reserve components, individuals entitled to receive immediate or deferred retirement benefits under any retirement program of the government of the United States, including survivor benefits. So anybody who has a Social Security number is quote-unquote federal personnel. Notice that your rules, statutes, and regulations created by a dead corporation do not apply to living souls. You'll notice that you and your subordinates have violated my rights under color of law, 18 U.S.C. 242 and U.S.C. 241. And so this is somewhere around here. I was going to start adding in about the letter I got, making threats and all of that. And yeah, so that was right around here. I was going to add that in. This is page 13 and it's 14 page. So we're almost at the end. Let's look. I want to look on YouTube. Yep, and we've been going for over 2 hours.
Yes.
So I think we ought to wrap it up now. This is a work in project. What I'll do is I'll upload the current document. This is going to the postmaster of Casa Grande.
Well, I hope you get your apology letter too, Glenn.
I guess we'll see. I don't necessarily expect that, but if I get one, that's great. Probably what'll happen is I won't have any more trouble, because I've done that before, and all of a sudden my problems went away, and I didn't hear another word about it. Anyways, yeah. So this is it, and it's only the way it is right now. So it's going to get changed. But this will give you a place to start for sure. So most of these paragraphs
is very helpful for not just what about private contractors? That spells out that they're government employees because of that social insurance number.
If they have a Social Security number, then they're a government employee. But that's the argument. So if they're assuming, okay, like in Texas, everything is about quasi-contracts, which quasi-contracts are for government employees. So we just, I helping this guy defeat this case. And so what I worked with him to do is to file a demand for discovery and I need to know the evidence that you have that I'm a government employee. And chances are they don't have any, and that's going to be a problem. And then I told him he's talking about, he actually suggested this, and I think it's brilliant, but he said he wants to change his plea. Okay, first of all, he objected to the forced plea. And so what he's going to do is he's going to bring that up with us. There's a brand new judge on the case. So he's going to bring up that he had objected to the forced plea, but what he wants to do now is just change his plea. And then he's going to say, I want to plead non-assumpsit. So he's basically going to, sorry?
Oh, that's perfect. That's the way to put a wrench in the wheel.
Yeah, it's telling them, I know about your game. and other people that I've seen do that, they don't admit it in front of everybody else because usually there's a bunch of people in the courtroom, right? But the case all of a sudden disappears. Because again, under the Constitution, they cannot impair the obligation of contracts, but they can't force you to participate in the contract either. And when you do non-assumpsit, that means that I don't want to participate in your little contract. Anyways, so
priceless.
We'll see what happens. I'm just looking through the chat on YouTube. I'm not seeing any questions or any kind of just a lot of statements. And I appreciate everybody coming and attending. And it's a networking thing. I don't know everything. And so if you have any comments, just leave them in the chat below YouTube. And other than that, I suppose we'll